Test. Hello, class. How are you? We'll wait a few minutes until some of the guys shows up. Meanwhile, I will finish my coffee, my tea. I said tea.
Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
How is your family? How is your vacation?
Oh, it's good. I was going to ask you guys, how was it? 1 week off. I hope you enjoyed it. Mine was fine. Really, it was okay. Things were fun. Uh, it's not long enough, put it this way, to go somewhere. And but I'm planning during the summer vacation, I might be visiting Winnipeg. I spent almost half of my life there, so I guess I want to go see friends and all. I should tell. So I probably will go there. But here is something you might want to do during your end of the semester. Just go see Montreal. Anybody been in Montreal before?
Yeah,
No.
Professor. I have been to Montreal during the fall season last year.
Okay, you like it?
Yeah, it was really very nice. I like the Montreal downtown especially.
St. Catherine Street and all the
Yeah.
activities. And it's funny, like from April until, you know, October, every day is event there.
Oh, one thing I could not see there was a Notre Dame because it was closed due to COVID.
Yeah, it was close to COVID. But have you gone to the Mount Real? It's called Mount Real. It's kind of that's the reason they call it Montreal. It's kind of
No.
that would be probably next trip you want to do that. It's a hiking thing, it's a walking, and it's a good place to see. And they have
Oh,
also, I think the place that I was working, just across the river of it, like I can see it every day, there is what do you call kind of an environment, uh, kind of environment standard. So you walk in there, it's just how there is no pollution there or something like that. I've never been there, but I see it every day. And also there is a big ship you can take and takes you all the way to New York, by the way, you can get it on the cruise there. But itself, like it's fun. But here is a small trick you probably need to learn when you go to Montreal. I think the people in Montreal, they're okay. They will talk to you English. But
yeah, but then the road signs and everything, it's like everything in French. So like we had a bit of difficulty while
yeah,
traveling.
yeah. But even dealing with the people, here is my small trick that you use it next time, and you will see the difference. When you go in and you speak with Quebecer or people in Montreal, and you speak right away English, some of them they don't answer you, or they don't like to answer it. But once you tell them bonjour or bonsoir, there will be, and then you tell them bonjour, bonsoir, and then you start your English. They will talk to you. And when you leave, just say, merci. That's the two words you need to do in Montreal. The rest, all the way English. I tell my friend, you can go there, say bonjour, and you start, even if you want, you can talk Punjabi. They will answer you. So it is, my friends, He's from Punjab. So he was saying, are you serious? I said, yeah. But if you don't say bonjour or bonsoir, they will go, we don't know English, something like that. So that's the trick part of it. Yeah. Next time you just pick up these two words.
Yeah, like few words I just picked up from that trip, and the rest was completely dependent on a Google Translator.
Yeah, but everybody, oh, there, even if they don't speak it, they understand it, by the way. But they just have, such a pride for their language. So that's the reason. If you walk in and they see you that you are just saying bonjour or bonsoir, then they will probably be more friendly and they smile. But if you say good morning, no smile you're gonna get from them. What do you want? This is something like that. So that was the only thing. But here is something that I've noticed is Montreal is like the European version of North America. And it's not like Paris or France. It's more like Belgium. You know what I mean? I had the feeling that when I was in Montreal, like I'm in Belgium, I'm not in Paris, something like that. But it's an interesting place. And more interesting is also Ottawa, because it's like yeah, there is Ottawa, and then you cross the river and you are in Gatineau. And Gatineau is belong to Quebec, which is a French. And Ottawa is belong to Ontario, which is English. Hi, Shaitan. So that's that. Now, I guess we will start the class, hoping the rest will join us. Today I want to speak about there is some differences and might cause some differences in communication, a style of communication that might cause discomfort for you or for the other side. But once you understand them, and that's before we talk about the chapter, once you understand them, it's easy to communicate. And I think some of you guys took this in a business communication or something like that. But it's nice to know that really what we think is not exactly what we think. And start understanding that, okay, that's what it's happening there. And one of the things that usually create that in us is the low context and the high context. Anybody can tell me what's the difference between a low context and a high context? Okay, make it easier. India, Japan, okay, India, Japan, Persia, they're kind of a high context countries. And North America is the extreme low context countries. What does it mean? It means that when they talk to you in Japan, China, Iran, India, they don't tell you the whole information. And you need to figure out some information. So they give you hints or they hide something and they don't hide it, but they say it, but you need to figure it out by looking at the gestures, by looking at the style of talking, and that's called a high context. So there is some extra messages there. But okay, we'll do that end of the class probably. Speak to me end of the class about these issues. But in the low context, is like USA, they don't they tell you everything very clearly. In Canada, also very clear. Move on. They would tell you, move on. You know what I mean? And you think it's kind of disrespect or aggressive, and actually it's not. In North America, that's what you call a low context. And it's not being aggressive, they're just being assertive. So we differentiate, and we don't know that. And sometimes when we speak, like if we want somebody to move, says, would you like to move? That's in the high context, we think that way and we translate it like this. But in the low context, like Canada and USA, they don't say, would you like to move? They tell you, can you move or move? And that will kind of saying, oh, he's very aggressive, or, you know, or might understand the assertiveness in it. So let's start there, and then we'll start talking about chapter 7. So I want you to really recognize that the fact that somebody talks to you, is he being aggressive or assertive? And they are a very fine line, and this fine line is depend on the culture that they are telling you. So lots of stuff might sound very aggressive in your culture, like in Ken culture or in Mark culture or in Shita culture. But then when you look at it here, no, it's just being assertive. So today also I'd like to think about that too. Is the person that we're talking to him, he is aggressive or assertive? Is the way I'm going to talk to my employees or my subordinate in the project, is that sound assertive or aggressive? Because you might have a group and some of them will understand, oh, he's very aggressive. And the other would think, no, he's just assertive. So these are things that I want to kind of think about it. But in the same time, what I will do, I probably will try to show you a sample of being assertive and aggressive. And we'll take it from there.
Marilyn, where's my anatomy workbook?
Check the stack by the door.
No, I left it right here on the desk an hour ago.
Sorry, I haven't seen it. I'm going to lunch.
You're going to lunch?
You want me to pick you up something?
Yeah, I want you to pick up this mess. I can't believe you're leaving the lab in this condition. You know, I have to teach in this room too.
The kids got a little wild today. They're kids. Okay? Really, Val, it's not if some freak tornado just hit the place.
You know, I don't think it's very funny.
Val, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I'm constantly picking up after you, and I'm just fed up with it. Now, this is the 4th time this week.
What, are you keeping a log? Look, I do my share around here. You know, the closet is filled with your stuff. I tripped over your boots this morning. And I resent the way you're talking to me. Just because you have seniority, I do not have to answer to you.
Oh, don't start with that age thing with me. I'm just asking you to act a little bit more like a teacher and less like a student.
My students are very well behaved.
What are you saying, mine aren't? You know, I supported you when you applied to teach here 2 years ago. But this attitude, I mean, it makes me wonder how committed you are to Danbury High.
What attitude? Val, I've never criticized your teaching, but you are always making petty remarks about me. We have different ways of doing things, and unfortunately, you want everything your way. You complain when I put the chairs in a circle, you criticize my lab purchases.
Put the chairs on the ceiling for all I care. Just put them back in the rows when you're finished. And as far as the lab bills are concerned, you're supposed to clear them with me first.
There's that boss thing again.
We're supposed to share the lab budget and agree on any expenditures.
Well, you bought those test tubes and that outdated Apollo software without asking me.
I've been here 10 years, and I assumed since you didn't know the routine that I would just handle the standard budget request.
Well, you assume everything here is going to stay the same. But I've got my own ideas, and at least I'm in touch with what's going on in the field.
Well, then I suggest that you get in touch with your maturity deficiency, and everyone else around here agrees.
Everyone who? At least the students don't consider me clueless.
This talk is getting us nowhere. I will make a list of the lab rules and responsibilities, and I'll email you a copy. Right now I have a class to teach.
When did you figure out how to use email?
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
Where's my anatomy?
So the first one was an aggressive one. This is kind of an assertive communication.
Workbook?
Is it by the door?
No, I left it on the desk.
Oh, gremlins. You know how things move mysteriously around here. Well, I'm going to go to lunch. Want me to pick you up something?
Well, wouldn't mind if you help me pick up this mess. I have a class at 12:30.
Oh, I guess my kids got a little wild today. Sorry. Okay.
Actually, it's not.
Val, is there a problem?
Well, remember that talk we had a few months ago about each of us leaving the lab the way we found it?
Are we having that talk again?
Do you mind?
I honestly thought I was doing my share around here, but I did flunk home Ec 101. I'll try harder. While we're at it, you know, the closet is filled with a lot of your stuff. I didn't have room for my coat this morning.
I am such a pack rat. We just need more room.
Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Oh, is this your workbook?
Oh, thanks. Look, I'll put some of my stuff in the storage room later, okay? And can we talk about the chairs?
The chairs?
Yeah, in a circle like that. I really prefer them in rows.
I thought it'd be okay to leave them since I do teach more classes.
Well, true, but I really prefer the more conventional way to arrange a room.
Val, you've been here a lot longer than I, and I respect that.
Oh, you're not going to get in the age thing, are you?
Oh, no, not at all. But I asked the students which seating they prefer, and they like the circle so they can see each other during discussions.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I know it's a more progressive style of teaching, but since we share the room, I need you to check with me first on these things, okay?
Fair enough. You said things?
Yeah, like the lab budget, our joint budget. You know, those 2 cases of test tubes nearly wiped us out.
Oh, but the old ones were so grungy.
And well, grungy equipment is the standard procedure around here.
Well, who's standard?
Touche. But I am concerned with how fast our lab budget's disappearing. Now, maybe we could get together, go over the invoices, and look for ways we can manage the funds so we don't get caught short.
Good idea. I have a lot to learn about handling money. You know, why don't we create a spreadsheet?
Do you know how to do that on a computer?
Sure, it's easy. I'll teach you.
Great.
You know, Val, since this is my second year at Danbury, I would like to feel free to do a few things my way.
I felt the same way when I started here, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago.
Oh, come on. You know, this will work out fine as long as we keep the communication open. I will work with you on the chair thing and the housekeeping.
Okay.
You clean out the closets. And no more budget surprises from either of us.
Well, maybe we should make out a checklist of the do's and the don'ts.
Good idea. We'll do it over lunch, after class.
Great.
My treats.
Thanks.
Oh, just one thing.
What?
Lend me $20 till I cash my check.
No problem.
So you notice it's the same scenarios, both same scenarios. I mean, same cases. But one is an aggressive and one is assertive. But you wonder if we are from the high context culture, which is we come from, say, from, for example, for India or from Philippine or, you know, they might not see that as an assertive, the second part. They might see also this person is not polite, maybe not aggressive, but it's not polite, for example. So you need to really sometimes adjust with, you know, the local culture to understand and to cooperate better in the situation. I just wanted to you guys to see that. So let's start the chapter. But yeah, let's start the chapter and then we'll talk about Tuckman models. We're already done with the Tuckman models, but this is the advanced one of how the group get together. In the Tuckman model, last time we spoke about how the group comes together, shape up, and become a group, and how they are getting, you know, break up all these process. And that was probably the first class or the second class. Today also we will be, hopefully, we'll present that Tuckman model again, but it's more advanced here, because it can help you to understand how you set up a group and how you work with a group, for example. And it's a beautiful model, by the way. But before we do that, let's do the chapter. Okay, in this chapter, chapter 7, we'll talk about fellowship, and we'll discuss more details about the fellowship. And the objective of this chapter is to effectively manage both up and down the hierarchies. So your boss and your subordinate. Recognize your fellowship style and take steps to become a more effective follower. Understand the leader's role in developing effective followers. Apply the principle of effective fellowship, including responsibilities, services, challenging authority, participating in change, and knowing when to leave. Implementing the strategies for fellowship at school or work, and we'll play a video about in the school. Know what followers want from leaders and what leaders expect from followers. And also, we will use the feedback and leadership coaching to help followers grow and achieve their potential. So, in other words, it is not about just management. It's about managing up or your boss and managing down or your subordinate. So a good leaders manage both up and down of hierarchies, as you see here. It's pretty tough to say that, but you really will do really well if you know how to manage your boss also. And in this chapter, we will talk more about managing your boss, and I'm pretty sure some of us are feeling shy or saying this is not ethical or or we don't know how to manage our boss. And a lot of times you feel that you are being treated unfairly because you were not able to get what you need. And most of the time is because you're not able to manage your boss. And managing up consciously and deliberately, developing a meaningful, task related, a mutually respectful relationship with your direct supervisor. That's what it means managing up. And in managing up, there is issues. Usually people feel discomfort with the idea of managing bosses and also not in control of this relationship. So what so the two reasons that you usually don't like the fact to explore how to manage your boss is first is you are ethically feeling it's wrong, and it's not wrong at all. And the second, you know that you are not in control, and your boss with a snap of finger can change lots of stuff, and that makes you more discomfort situation. What your leader wants from you, it's very important so you can manage your leader very well. Um, what your leader in general wants from you is you have to have this make it happen attitude, willingness to cooperate and collaborate, motivation to stay up to date, and passion to drive your growth, your own growth. So it's basically, these are the things a general leader wants you to do, a good leader wants you to do, that you are a doer, you can make it happen. And also you're willing to collaborate and cooperate also with your team, especially collaboration. And should be some kind of, you can see that the motivation inside you, that you want to learn more and be updated and progress and have something, and you have a kind of a passion to grow. So he can help you in how to also grow. So this is a general thing that the leader looking for you. There is a styles of fellowship. The style is determined by the two dimension. The first one is a critical thinking versus uncritical thinking. And we'll see the videos about what's the difference between them, and active versus passive. So a combination of them will determine the style of fellowship. And as you see here, in a critical thinking is thinking independently and being mindful of effects of one's own and other people behavior on achieving the organization visions. There's lots of literature written about critical thinking. So what's uncritical thinking is failing to consider possibilities beyond what one is told, and accepting the leader's ideas without thinking, whatever you say, sir. That's uncritical thinking. Now, let's look at this. Just to let you know that one of the things that I was looking at this, your assignment is there a critical thinking? Is there a driven thoughts from the information? And if you just define the words that I put it in the video for you, that's not a critical thinking, that's just defining the thing. But when you do your assignment, you need to show that you've been thinking, processing, and coming with a conclusion, agreeing or disagreeing. And I saw most of the assignment done in that way, which is great. So just I've seen lots of assignment, and I know once these assignment, which is done with the passion, and some of them without, just assignment, just copy it and walk away, or something like that. So you want to make sure that your assignment kind of has involved with the critical thinking. But later on, I will show you what it meant by critical thinking in the field of education, probably end of the first half of the class. Followership styles is defined as follower style. What kind of followers is there? Thinking style, these type of followers, what kind of the way they think, and how they are in the engagement level. Let's take a look at this, and we'll take it from there. So there's what you call the follower type. What kind of a type is your follow? People who's following you. There might be alienated followers. And the reason, because they are independent and they have some kind of a critical thinking. So that's one type. And what kind of these guys, people, when you see them, they are passive in their organization, just standing there. They don't care. They don't want to involve in anything because they're independent and a critical thinker. And then you have the conformist, the ones who's always in your face telling you things. And they are telling you things that, how are we going to do that? How are we going to say that? And they are the ones who are dependent and uncritical thinker. But you see them, they're active. They just like, the dogs, they're very active, but waiting for you to tell you, and they will follow you. And probably I would say these guys are like cats. And then the pragmatic survivor, which is, it could be both as needed. And pragmatic comes in from the fact what solution it's needed in that case and how we approach that. There's always keeping the relation, even the things is going back bad or good. And then you have the followers, which is the passive one. And the passive one, they will do exactly, once again, like the dogs, and they are kind of a passive in everything, even in the organization. They're not active. They don't want to do anything. They're just passive. But the conformatives that are active. And then you have what you call the effective followers, which is they are independent and critical thinking. Now, if you want to ask me which one is the best between them, I said it depends on the job. But in general, if you want to have a very progressive one, probably you need to get the independent and the critical thinker, assuming the project, the work that's in your hand is kind of not autonomous, not always the same thing, and needs lots of. These people can be very supportive if you give them the support. Now, what do you call strategies for managing up? In other words, when you say, anytime we're saying managing up means managing your supervisor or your boss. There is a strategies for it. And first of the strategy is you need to understand the leader. Learn the goals, need, strength, in the weakness, and organizational constraints. And also study the leader's work style, what kind of a work style is doing. And then use the specific tactics to improve that relations through be a resourceful, for example, help the leader to be a good leader, build a relationship with the leader, and have a view of leader realistically as whatever he is in or she. But the ways you should know, a good boss or a good leader, it's actually, he wants to teach you everything because he wants to take a break. And once you can do things for him the way he wants it, then he reached to really time that he can put his feet up and relax and takes a break. So think about most of these bosses, they are taking all this stress and pressure and more than 8 hours working day and night is because they don't feel their followers can deliver these. But once he feels one of them or two of them or some of them, they can do that, then he can have his feet up, he can take vacations. And this is why he trains you, because he wants to, get a breathe. You influence your leader. Let's start from the bottom to the up. And here saying be resourceful. Some example like determine the leader's need, tell the leader about you, and then you need to help the leader to be a good leader. We said that. And probably you ask them for advice and tell leader what you think. Find things to thank the leader for. Then you also need to build a relationship with the leader and ask about leaders at your level, your level or position. Ask the leader to tell you company stories. And the last thing you can do is review the leader realistically. Give up the idealistic, expectation from your leader. Don't hide anything. Be very transparent. Don't criticize the leader to the others and disagree occasionally with him or her. Now, there is sources of power for managing up. To manage your leaders or managing up, you have source of powers, and there is what you call personal sources and position sources. In the personal sources, maybe your knowledge, your skills, your expertise, history, your effort, that's a personal, and persuasion. In the position sources, the position that you have, visible positions, follow up the information, probably, central location, and network of relationship. Now, necessary courage to manage up, because it is not only you feel discomfort with the idea of managing up, you also you have less courage to do so. So you need a courage to assume responsibilities, definitely. And one of the issues that we fail to talk to get what we need, that we can be a lack of the courage. And that could be in a different field of courage. It could be in responsibilities. We don't want to take any responsibilities. We don't want to assume any responsibilities. We don't want to be in a challenge or challenging the position. I don't know. We just want to serve and finish up the thing. And that might keep you not getting, not getting a growth within the organization because you don't just not enough courage there to do things. Courage to challenge his ideas or challenge the position. Also, you need the courage to participate in if there is any transformations. Courage to serve or to work, actually, and courage to live. Here's a rank orders for desirable characteristics. These desirable leaders are, and desirable followers or colleagues are. So basically, let me explain to you this. they went and asked people, what kind of a leader would like to have? And the people said, we like to have an honest person, forward thinking, inspiring, and competent. Now they asked the leaders, what kind of a followers you like to have? And the funny thing, they said, we want honest person. So honestly is a common thing between leader and the colleagues, the followers. Cooperative, they love to see that they're cooperating, you're helping them, and you're helping your team. Dependable, that I can depend on it. And that's when I said in the beginning of the class, and 5 minutes ago, that a good leader wants you to take over, so some days he can take a day off. And also the competent. So you notice there is a few things that's in the common, and some of them are a little bit different. But the whole thing is that when they ask, what are you looking for in your leader, they told you this. And when they asked, what about the followers, then they told you this part of it. So you notice that there is difference in the some of them. Both honesty is there. Leader probably desire the forward thinking. Here they desired cooperative, inspiring. Should be here. It has to be a dependable, and the both looks for competent. So leaders and the followers should be competent. Leaders enhance followers' abilities and contribution. So now how you can help the followers' ability and how you can help them to contribute. First of all, you have to give them a direction and a clear one, clarity of the direction. Some kind of an opportunity to grow. So opportunities for growth. So when they come in, put more effort, they know that they can grow. Frequent and specific and immediate feedback. And that's very important to distinguish between a low context and high context. And we'll see it in a video also, how you do that. And protection from organization intrusion from other side. Feedback, feedback, feedback. How frequent? The more you can do, the nicer it is. Because when you are a leader, they like to see, your followers like to see your feedback. And if you can select the right feedback at the right time, you can guide them and you can help them to move on with your goal. There is something it's called leadership coaching, and it's a method of directing or facilitating a follower with the aim of improving specific skill or achieving a specific development goal. So you, as a leader, you facilitating that as a facilitators to help them and direct them. Now, the followers benefit from leadership coaching. We notice here is 36% said now we have a direct, clear and direct feedback. There is 23% said we have a new perspective. They are kind of, well, when they asked, employees, what's the benefit of your supervisor or your leader? And the percentage that they notice here, some of them said, we get a direction, we are clear about things, because sometimes it's not clear, and we might understand the organization much better. But keep in mind, whether you are a follower or a leader, I say always, you will find in the organization, whether they are followers or leaders, you will find a little Freud there who can analyze everything. And then you just listen to all the analysis around, and then you can figure it out for yourself and you become another Freud in the organization. But when you're talking to your leader, these are benefits you might receive from them from open communication. Good for advice on handling situation. The leaders help you in that, help you in understanding organizational objective, what's their objectives, encouragement, general encouragement, and handling organizational objectives. So these are what followers benefit from leadership coaching. Excuse me. Feedback. Using evaluation and communication to help individual and the organization learn and improve. And you have to know the feedback, when it's supposed to be done, how much positive, how much is negative, how it's a low context versus the high context of feedback, as we saw it in the video. But here is some tips that you can work on it. Is you have to make it timely. Focus on the performance, not the person. Make it specific, exactly clear to the point, and specific to what. And focus on the desired future, not on the past. When you give a feedback, you want to make sure the feedback is done timely. It's exactly the time that the other side can associate with it. So if you're going to tell them, oh, last year you did this, and it's the last year. And sometimes I tell people I don't remember what I had for lunch. So if you come in and after a year telling me the feedback, I might not be even recommend. So doing it timely is very good. Now, the other thing that you need to know is the fact, if you're doing that, the feedback, whether to your boss or to your subordinate, you want to make sure you are giving the feedback for performance. So the other person don't take it personally. It's news clear it's not about him, it's about the work or the performance. And that makes him takes it as an advice and not as a critic, negative critic. And you need to make it very specific on when you're talking about the task, which part of the task was not up to the satisfactory, for example. And always don't bring up, oh, last night you came late and all these things, or 10 years ago you came late and I did this stuff for you. There's always talk about the future. The future, that because once you give the focus on the future, the other person is able to analyze the past. So let me give you a scenario. A boss comes in and sees you that you're always late. So if he comes and tells you the last week you've been late, then he's focusing on the past. But if he's going to come to you and says, can you make it on time tomorrow? Right away, it's going to click in your mind that you've been late the whole week. But he's not going to tell you you've been late for the whole week. He told you, can you make it on time tomorrow? It means you've been late. And that's what it says, focus on the future. So you always make an upfront critique. Whatever have shortage there in the beginning, tell them in the future do that, or be specific for the future. Don't try to criticize the very old and don't make it personal thing. And that can help you in having a better and positive communication, put it this way. Now, what I want you to see now are probably some sample of low context, high context. And then after the break, we will talk about the Tuckerman models and
Yeah, I'm going to call it right now. I think I found the single biggest productivity hack of 2021. It's this Google Chrome extension called Speak. Hi, my
in this because it's important to understand to differentiate between these two.
My name is Rachel, and I'm a communication major at Humboldt State University. Let's talk about high and low context cultures, where this idea came from, what they mean, and how it can impact intercultural communication. The idea of a high context and low context culture came from Edward T. Hall in 1976 from his book titled Beyond Culture. Hall's work greatly influenced the field of communication. Now that you know where the idea of high context and low context cultures come from, let's define them. I like this visual because it's simple. A high context culture relies on information already known, and a low context culture communicates the details verbally. High context cultures are implicit, low context cultures are explicit. The reason why relationships are important in explaining high context and low context culture is that the closer and more intimate the relationship is, the more high context it becomes. You have more inside jokes and understand routines and details that you are less likely to know in newer relationships. In short, it's the less intimate and newer relationships that need things explicitly stated in order to be maintained. Let's move on to what this means for various cultures. Notice that on this list we have placed different countries under one of these labels. My country, for example, is America. In general, we value low context communication. Often this can mean repeating details considered important, or even explaining things that probably don't need explained. Other countries like Japan or China are considered high context cultures. This kind of culture relies on previous knowledge. An invite to dinner in America would include a time, a place, what to bring, but a dinner invite in a more high context culture might not include that level of detail because you would already know that dinner is at the same time every night. This description of low context and high context communication made me laugh. This is definitely not a fair description though. Oftentimes, to a low context communicator, it seems to be much more practical to be direct and get to the point. In a high context culture, the relationship is more important than the task, and it is worth all those twists and turns to communicate your point while still maintaining a positive relationship. I much prefer this description because I like that it shows communication as a moving part. On the left, it shows low context communication starting out specific and becoming more generalized as it progresses, whereas high context communication is the opposite. It starts out more generalized and becomes more specific. And communication does adapt this way. Now that you know a bit more about high context and low context culture, you can begin to see how these concepts can lead to different expectations that could impact intercultural communication. So what can we do about it? Be aware whether your culture is high or low context and ask yourself what kind of expectations you are bringing with you when you communicate.
So previously, when we were using spreadsheets, we were heavily meeting dependent. It took us hours to update.
Okay. So this is one of the definition for high context and a low context. Here's another one that probably after looking at that, you can understand much better how you apply it for businesses also. Then we will take a break after that.
The context of a situation depends on who you are communicating with, where you are, what you are communicating about, and why you are communicating in the first place. In low context cultures, the way people communicate doesn't vary so much. It tends to be more formal and people focus on the subject matter rather than the person they are communicating with. In a business setting, problems and differences are often dealt with early on. Once an agreement has been reached, the details are often recorded and written down. In low context cultures, detailed contracts are an essential part of doing business. Once a contract is signed, it can rarely be changed, and it is used to settle any disagreements that might arise in the future. In high context cultures, the focus is on the people involved. Relationships are a key part of communication. When doing business, people remain flexible and change can happen at any time. Problems are often put to one side and only dealt with when absolutely necessary.
So I guess now you notice that there is high context and there is a low context. There is assertive communication and there is aggressive communication. And that can define how you can manage your team or how you can manage your supervisor. Because let's assume you are from high context managing a low context people, and they are looking for your directions, a clear direction, and not only personality wise. But if you both from high context, that's a different. If you both from low context, that's a different. And sometimes you probably in a business with a high contact, low contact, and you think he is stupid or he is too much direction, too much information, simple information that he's not supposed to give it to me. I know these stuff. I don't need to, have these repeated. That's because he comes from the low context and not the high contact. And sometimes if what's the low context will think about the high one? Oh, he is gray, not clear, not it's kind of his information gets so much doubts in it. So these are the things might be affecting the way you're managing your followers or how you manage your supervisor. Now, there's only 2 minutes I like you to see for the critical thinking, which is you can apply it in two parts. One in your coming assignment, and also you can apply it in your really work. You can, it can be very helpful. So just hold on a second, let me, and then we will definitely, I'll give you a break. So I just want to show you what's a critical.
What do you think it'll take to solve?
What it takes to do a critical thinking. And you hear a lot about critical thinking, but we don't know what is it, some of us. So this is the video probably going to specify or tell you exactly what's a critical thinking and how you apply it in education or in a daily work. Just hold on a second here. It's a 2 minutes.
Solve problems like this: more critical thinking or more trigonometry? What do you think it'll take to solve problems like this? More critical thinking or more trigonometry? How about this? More critical thinking or more quadratic equations? And this? Everyone agrees that critical thinking is very important to make better decisions and to tell when someone is trying to manipulate us, like a politician or a pundit or an advertisement. But how exactly do we teach that? I'm a former teacher and I've been thinking a lot about critical thinking skills. In other subjects, the skills are very clearly defined. Like in math, you start with counting and work your way up. So what are the building blocks for critical thinking? It seems unclear, like you just start with discussion, then say, go do critical thinking. But how? So I thought of some specific skills, like distinguishing fact from opinion, correlation versus causation, logical fallacies, assessing credibility and bias, detecting deceptive use of statistics, and knowing the experimental method versus anecdotal evidence. So these are all taught, right? Looking at the curriculum requirements in the US, this is how many standards require each skill. Most of them are in only 1 to 3 standards, but for comparison, quadratic equations are required in 14 standards. Now, I know there are good teachers who do teach this more often, and good textbooks too. But if it's not required by the standards, how many students are really learning this? Looking at the actual classroom data, fact and opinion is taught less than homonyms, and fallacies are taught even less than that. But look at how much quadratic equations are taught. Now, I'm not picking on math. On the contrary, math is the role model for how we should be teaching critical thinking. You don't just do a single unit on fallacies or fact versus opinion. It's a skill you need to practice over and over, every year, just like math. And if critical thinking is at least as important as math, shouldn't it be taught at least as much? Now, this is no fault of the teachers. Their job requires them to teach the standards. So we need to change the standards, or the state curriculum, or the school curriculum. But I understand this is a difficult choice. Adding more requirements means we have to take away some. But if there's parts of the curriculum that students rarely use or remember beyond school, then we probably need to question the value of that. To paraphrase a proverb, teach someone a lesson they learn for a day. Teach someone to think they learn for a lifetime. So if you know any teachers or school leaders, please share this video with them. Copy the link right now. Also go to Critical Thinking Project.
So I guess we're going to stop it where he's making a commercial out of it. But yes, I mean, when I gave you that assignment, for example, I just wanted you to look at the video and look at the case and apply the video to the case with a scenario of Canada and a process of, analyzing things. And might not be, you might disagree with expansion. So you remember in the first class, I said what time it is? It depends on your country, what time it is. So there is no wrong or right answer, but it's wrong, you cannot justify it. So what I want you to do is justifying things. It could be a wrong answer, but as long as you're justifying it, then it's a right. And I know this is unacceptable sometimes, but it's true. If you can, because lots of answers are kind of, it's not about right or wrong. It's about justifications and analysis. And those the process of it. So I hope now you understand what's the critical thinking and how it's done. What we're gonna do now, we'll take a break for, I guess, let's do it until, yeah, we'll do it for 15 minutes. And when we back, we will start the next chapter. Hopefully, we will finish the chapter. Anybody has an issue, please stick around so we can fix up, if you have a required, stick around so we can fix it up. Rest, please feel free to come back in 15 minutes. Have fun. So now, before we start the chapter, coming chapter, we already saw the first introduction video of how establishing a group or a project. And we noticed in the beginning, you introduce them, there's some kind of an aggressive, assertive, informational, all these things, the process, and there is a life cycle for a project. And if you are aware in what situation, then you are fully aware of the surrounding, what they're trying to do, and how you can manage that really well. So this is the same serial video, but it's a more advanced, and it's nice to understand, okay, at what stage we are in this project right now, and why the people in your team are behaving in that way. So at least you would know exactly how you can manage that, whether you're a project leader or a member of the project. So that's the reason I like you to see this short video, and then we will continue the chapter. It's a beautiful Tuckman model, and it's a beautifully set.
Perhaps the best known and most widely used model for how groups develop into a team is that developed by Bruce Tuckman, the Tuckman model. So in this video, I'm going to explain how the Tuckman model works. The Tuckman model was developed in the 1960s by Bruce Tuckman and then further refined in collaboration with Mary Ann Jensen in the 1970s. It's a hugely influential model and, by all accounts, my favourite model of team development. Tuckman said that the success of the model was almost certainly due to the fact that they chose rhyming words for the different stages of the model, which made it easy for people to remember. And whilst I think there is definitely something in that, I would also say that the Tuckman model is almost the perfect model in that it strikes the ideal balance between simplicity and sophistication. It is simple enough that we can easily understand it and memorize it. There aren't huge numbers of stages and components that make it complex to understand. But on the other hand, there is enough in it that it carries the sort of sophistication and subtlety that we need to explain a broad range of experiences and to accurately predict what will happen in many cases. Model building is difficult. Getting that balance between simplicity and sophistication is hard. But Tuckman has hit the nail on the head. So let's have a look at Tuckman's model, which some people call the Orming model. And you'll know why when you hear the names of the stages. And that first stage is the forming stage. The forming stage is when the team first comes together. At that stage, they are not a team, they're just a group of people who don't know one another or who may know one another a bit. So at this early stage, what people will do is try to get to know one another. They will ask each other simple questions. Their conversation will be at a superficial level. What they're trying to do is to get some measure of each other and to get a sense of where they have things in common. What the team will really want to do is to get on with some work. So your job in leading the team is to keep them active, and in doing the work, they will start to get to know one another. But of course, once people start to get to know one another, personalities will start to emerge. At the early stages, we're kind of suppressing elements of our personality because we want to see how it fits in with other people. But as we feel more confident, our desire to fit in is exceeded by our desire to be true to ourselves. Some people, of course, will push for a dominant role within the group. They will try to assert themselves. Others will be less confident, less assertive, and will be looking for a niche. They'll be looking for allies with whom they can get on, and also roles that they can feel comfortable in. You will find that this is the stage where people start to argue. They will argue with the tasks they are set, they will argue with the leadership they receive, and they will argue with one another. This is the stage that Tuckman called the storming stage. It is intensely psychological. The team has moved from a very low level of confidence to enough confidence to assert itself. And yet still they are not completely comfortable with the work that they need to do. But this intensely psychological, emotional stage is draining on people, and eventually they will settle down. People will start to feel that they've got a place in the group. And once they feel they've got a place in the group, they can retreat into getting their work done. So the next stage, which Tuckman called the norming stage, can be highly productive. What we tend to find in the norming stage is people settling down and getting on with their work. In the background, people are also trying to find ways of working with one another. The team will move towards a consensus of the kind of behaviours that work for it. And this is what psychologists call norming. They are finding norms of behaviour, patterns of working which work for the team. If your leadership is effective, then you can move the team on from the norming stage to the final stage of Tuckman's original model, and that's the performing stage. If people have found good ways to work with one another and they have started to build good relationships, then they can start to help one another. They can provide creative input, support in problem solving, guidance, support with difficulties as well. And that means the team will work as one. They will start to collaborate. They will be working on their shared goal together. And now the level of performance of the team will take a jump. If you've ever worked in a team where it has been a joy to be part of that team, even though the other members of the team may not be your best friends, you felt that you were achieving great things together. This is a team in the performing stage. It has achieved a high level of performance. And in Tuckman's original work, this was the end of the story. But in the 70s, working with Mary Ann Jensen, they re-examined the model. They confirmed that the forming, storming, norming and performing stages were still consistent with all the most current research, but they also identified that there was another stage. Because a team that has worked well together and performed well together and formed productive workplace social bonds that is then split up to go its separate ways, will find that disruptive. They called this next stage the adjourning stage. The team adjourns. But many people, like myself, prefer the term mourning, because although it would be crass to think that a team splitting up is rather like a personal loss and a bereavement, the centres in our brain that cope with it are the same ones. They just cope with it at a lower level of intensity. And therefore, the right thing for the team to do when it splits up is to do the sort of things we do when we are mourning the loss of a loved one. We need to acknowledge that something valuable is being lost and celebrate what we had. If the team does not mourn, then the individuals may not comfortably move on to their next team role. Now, in the 1990s, I worked on a lot of teams on a lot of projects in different organisations. And I saw the Tuckman model play out. I saw the forming, storming, norming, performing and mourning stages all play out in my experience. However, I also observed that something else happens sometimes. The team would be working well. It would be in the performing stage. Then one or two people would leave. New people would come in. Or maybe the same team would be retasked from this job to another job. And strangely, this high-performing team stopped performing as well, at least for a while. I refer to this as the transforming stage, and it reminds us that we need to remember that when people from the team leave, when new people join the team, when the team has different work to do, it changes enough that the team may no longer be in the performing stage. It may slip back to a norming stage, finding new ways of working with the new people in the team, or new ways of working together on the new task. If it's a big enough change, there may be arguments about the new roles that people have on the new task, or filling gaps for people who have left. And those arguments can feel a lot like the storming stage. If the change is huge, then people won't really be sure where they sit within the team and what it's all about, and it might even feel like the forming stage all over again. So that's the basic Tuckman model. I wonder if you recognise it from your own experiences, because I certainly do from mine. We'll develop our thinking about this more as we go through the next modules in this course. But for now, the important thing to remember is that a team will storm. It will go through the forming, storming, norming and performing stages if led well. But even if it jumps straight from coming together to performing well under pressure to perform, after a while, the team will storm. When the pressure comes off, personalities will out and people will start to argue. So don't necessarily think that the cycle of forming, storming, norming and performing is a rigid one. The Tuckman model is a hugely flexible model, and it's one that I believe every manager should know, should understand, and be able to call to mind when they are working with a group that needs to develop into a team. Please.
So it is a beautiful model. It explains to you the stage you're in, and it also gives you more understanding. And once you understand things, at what stage you are in with your team, then you're able to accommodate that stage. So as a project leader or a project manager or a member of a project, and you see the team is kind of is a slow and make you, things is now producing, don't feel impatient. Don't feel that, I have to jump out, because it's probably they are in a stage of norming. It might take a little bit longer if there is a huge differences in the personalities. But eventually, they all are mature, aware that these people, they know they have to perform. So this model, the Tuckman model, is a very beautiful model. Although in the beginning, in the first video that we watched, there was no transforming stage. It wasn't talking about transforming stage. And it's about, put it this way, if new people coming in or the project is changing to a different project or adjustments happening, then that's a transforming. So you might go back to norming and suddenly the performance stops because the changes might be really big and different people coming in, or a different project has to be, and that slows down. And sometimes that's what the coaches of football games or sports, or even the leaders, are they don't like changing the members a lot. They don't, high turnovers in companies might cause these slowing down of performance. Also, in sport, if you keep changing your players, trying to bring a better players, that might also slows down everything. So that's the reason sometimes the high turnover, especially in sophisticated projects, or replacing input, it might affect the performance, and they might go back to, in the norming stage, or because started from all over. But once you are there, again, you need to know that you are in that stage and how you're going to manage that stage to move to the next stage. So it is a beautiful model. Now let's start with the chapter. It's not a very long chapter, and hopefully we can go earlier. Let me know if you have questions. In this chapter, we will be talking about motivation and empowerment. Okay. So in this chapter, we will talk about our learning objective in this chapter is to recognize and apply difference between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Appropriately tap into the motivation that induce people to take action to accomplish important goals. Motivate others by meeting higher level needs. We're also gonna try to we'll learn about how to apply the needs-based theories of motivation and understand how the concept of equity applies to motivation. We will describe the psychological and the structural element of empowerment and how empowerment contributes to motivation. And we will try to apply the understanding how to apply the job characteristics model to enrich the jobs and identify factors that play a role in the employee engagement and use engagement to meet the higher level of needs and build a thriving workforce by giving people a sense of making a progress toward goals. But in the first stage, we want to know what's a motivation. In the motivation, it's the force either internal or external to a person that arouse enthusiasms and persistence to pursue certain course of action. So something internal or external help you to pursue certain course of action. Employee motivation affects the productivities. And part of the leader's job is to channel followers' motivation toward the accomplishment of organization visions and goals. And usually, good leaders use motivation theory to satisfy the followers' needs and encourage high work performance. So basically, the leaders will have some kind of a theory in their mind when they are working with you in order for them to kind of create a motivation inside the employees and the followers to produce more. In that theory, we will define different type of theories, and they might be using one of them or a combination of them. But there is a simple model of motivation. So all of us have needs. So it starts with a need, and a need is a created desire to fulfill it because of the need. And that could be money, friendship, recognition, achievement, these things. These are some needs within the human. And then there is a behavior which is result into, which is defined as a behavior as a result into action to fulfill the need. So you have need, and you start behaving in a certain way to fulfill that need. And then there is a reward, which is satisfy the needs, whether this reward is intrinsic or extrinsic reward. And then the reward inform the person. Feedback, there is a feedback right away, the word informs person whether behavior was appropriate and should be used again. The definition for intrinsic rewards is the internal satisfaction a person receives in the process of performing a particular action. The extrinsic reward is a reward usually given by your supervisor, by manager, such as pay increase, and promotions. But the need of people, and there is two ways of approaching it. There is a way that like the conventional management, which is they target the lower need, and there is what you call the carrot. And so basically, we're aware that there is, there's two types of management. There is the conventional management, there's a regular management or the conventional feed supervisor, and there is a style of leadership. And there are two different ways of looking at how you, if you're a conventional manager, how you satisfy these needs. And if you're a leader, how you satisfy them. It's also affect the type of the work you're doing. So let's say you are in a cleaning environment in a company, probably lower need would be more effective than higher need because I don't know, it can be really affect the way you, the type of the work that you do also. And the stick, extrinsic, it usually controls people and people will put an adequate effort there. But in this, the leadership style, it focuses on the higher needs. And it gives empowerment for which is an intrinsic reward, and get the employee engagement, and usually you end up with the best effort of people who got involved in this, engaged in it. So if we look at the 4 categories of motives, first of all, we need to look at whether is it extrinsic or intrinsic. And in both cases, in which field, whether it's a pleasure, growth, or pain and fear. And so we notice here, the scenario is like this. You're working in a company and you're managing a group or you're managing that company. What company is seeking there is depend on the type of the work. Also, it depends on the people inside. So in the case, the first case, in the something positive, it means that a reward, you give them a pay, a salary, a raise, all these things. But in some organization, even if you pay them more, they're not that happy with the payments. And I can tell you a few corporations here, especially some of the crown corporation, they get really paid well, but you see the level of the drug addictions or resigning or quitting or not showing up is pretty high. So these people probably, they forgot to apply the intrinsic reward, which is that help the people to enjoy the work and get a sense of accomplishment. So these are the two things. If they people looking for money, that's fine, they get paid, but there's some people beyond the money, and the money at a certain level. So if you're looking at, for example, let me give you an example. You're probably working in a place and you're making good income, but after a while you want to take a break. Well, you are making a good income. Why you want to, go on vacation? Well, yeah, but that does not give me an inside reward. Maybe up to a level, but after that, I need to go see my family, I need to take a trip. That's the inside reward, which is a pleasure, it might be, or might be a growth. That's what you call an intrinsic. Now, you might use the extrinsic with combination of pain and fear. I hope you're not going to be in that situation, but you can, maybe in jails, you will see these stuff. And it is about like a threat and punishment. And that's probably will stop you from doing certain behavior or add, you know, or intrinsic, like tap into self-doubt things, which is anxieties, or people, you know, I don't have, I have a doubt about myself that I can produce that much. That's intrinsic pain and fear. And no need to, we'll go through this. And in the intrinsic positive approach, rewards such as pay, raise, bonuses, and praise. We'll talk about each one. So needs-based theory of motivation, there is a three type of theories, which is a hierarchies of needs theory, two-factor theories, and acquired need theory. Let me give you an understanding what makes a good theory and what makes a bad theory. And sometimes a theory can help us better than the reality, the fact. And the reason a good theory is a theory that can predict the consequences or the result. It doesn't have to be real. That's the reason they call it a theory. But if you put certain independent factors, will generate a certain dependent factor. So you're putting independent through this theory will generate dependent factor. If this theory can generate that and can tell us that will drive us to that, then it's a good theory to use. And there is some theories are very clear to reality, but they cannot help us to predict. So we don't use them that much. We're looking for things that can help us to predict. So these are type of the theories. Now it's a needs-based theories motivation, which is hierarchies of needs theories, Maslow, two-factor theories, and that's what you call acquired need theories. So if they can help us to predict, then they are good. In the hierarchy of need theory, Maslow's theory is very much known. You probably took this in the HR or yes, in HR or psychology, organizational psychology. Is the Maslow's theory proposes that humans are motivated by multiple needs, and those needs exist in a hierarchical order. So one, it would not, the new need does not come in unless the first need is satisfied. What does that mean if you look at this? So there is a psychological needs, which is the heat, air, base, salary. And then once this is satisfied, which is the lower need, then the safety need comes in, like a safe work, fringe benefit, and job security. And we will talk about each one of them in separate. So as an individual, as these are satisfied, the next one triggers, and the person will be looking for the next one. So that's how you create a fulfillment. It could be in a home fulfillment or a fulfillment in the job. So start with psychological needs, like you want to breathe, you want warm air, salaries, basic salary where you work in. And then once you got this, you start looking for next step, which is it safe work, which is safety need? Is it job security? You're going to start looking for a job security. So in the beginning, you're looking for a salary. Now you start looking for a job security. Once if these satisfied, then the next thing is going to trigger, and which is work group, clients, coworkers, supervisor. Is the supervisor a nice guy? Is he helping me? Are we working well? Otherwise, you will find a different company or different supervisor. And then is about esteem, self-esteem. Once you felt that you belong to a group, then you're looking for a self-esteem or esteem. And it's about, are they recognizing my work? Am I getting approval? Is there a higher status? Am I getting more responsibilities? Once you get these, because if your responsibility stays within the same for the next 5 years, you will be pretty much depressed also. And the last thing is about self-actualization needs. Is there is an opportunity to reach to the management, autonomy, growth, creativities. Now, let me tell you one thing that some of the management don't understand. I was in Erbil, north of Iraq, and the manager of a big supermarket, we were having a coffee, and he was saying, well, we have to hire local people. And we hire them, but they don't stay. We told them, okay, don't wear the uniform. Just come with your uniform. And they still don't want us to stay. We told them, you can keep your mobile. And they come for a few days working and then they leave. And the reason, because that manager is not seeing that these people came in there and he has to hire these numbers. They don't see self-actualization because they don't see any manager from their sides. So if they see some Kurdish managers there, which is they are growing, so they will see that, okay, so there is an opportunity for advancement and growth. And they notice that all the management are not Kurdish from overseas or expatriate. So that's self-actualization is not there. And the people comes into work and said, well, why would we want to stay there if we're not going to grow within this organization? And then you have what you call the two factors theory, which is there is two factors, which is the hygiene factors and the motivators. And the hygiene factor is about the first dimension of the two factor theory, and it's involved in the working conditions, the pay, companies' policies, and interpersonal relation. And that's called the hygiene factors. And then you have the motivator factors, which is involve the job satisfaction and meeting the higher levels need, such as achievement, recognition, and opportunity for growth. So basically, in this, what it's telling you is saying, okay, you might be working for a company, which is they pay you really well. You have a good organization. People are nice to you, but there's no motivation. After a while, you might be quitting. And you might be working for a company. They're two separate things. You might work in the company, which is there is self-actualization and motivation and everything, but they don't provide you a good salary. So and then you're quitting too. You're there just to learn and walk away after that. And these are two things that create, the more of these two, the more you are satisfied. So actually here you get more satisfied, the more the hygiene factors, you're more satisfied. But if you're located here, you're still not happy and you need to be motivated. So these are two factors that they have to be hand-to-hand improved. And we will discuss this because there is two parts of it, which is what do you call motivators and hygiene factors, which they are separated from each other. Now, acquired need theory is proposed that certain type of needs, such as achievement, affiliation, power, are acquired during individuals' lifetime. And in the acquired theory, it says there is a need for achievement, there is a need for affiliation, and there is a need for power. And the need for achievement is about the desire to accomplish something difficult, attain a high standard of success, master a complex task, and surpass the others. That's the need for achievement. In the field of affiliation, the desire to form a close personal relationships and also avoid the conflict and establish a warm friendship. And there is what you call the need for power, which is desire to influence or control others, be responsible for others, and have authority over others. So they have a three different type. It's like a need for achievement, need for affiliation, and a need for power. There is other motivation theories like reinforcement theory, and that's one of the old theories, the reinforcement, the expectancies theories, and the equity theory. And in the reinforcement theory is a motivational theory that looks at the relationship between the behavior and its consequences by changing or modifying followers on the job behavior through the appropriate use of immediate reward or punishment. I think it started a long time ago, I think through Pavlov. It was established by Pavlov with the experiment with dogs. And the reinforcement perspective on motivation is what you call will influence the behavior modifications. So the behavior modification, it's about set of techniques by which reinforcement theory is used to modify the behavior. The law of effect says that and states that the positive reinforcement behavior tend to be repeated. So the more positive reinforcement gets repeated, and the behavior that is not reinforced tend to be not repeated. And then you have the reinforcement, which comes in and it says anything that causes certain behavior to be repeated or inhibited or not and stop. And then you have what you call the positive reinforcement is the administration of the pleasant and reward consequences following a behavior. So basically here, there is two things, reinforcement and positive reinforcement, and they are applied in the law of effect, which is, it's all about the behavior modification. So you want to modify somebody's behavior, you use the law of effect, and what kind of things you can use, positive reinforcement or regular negative reinforcement. Then you have what you call the negative reinforcement, which is withdraw of unpleasant consequences once a behavior is improved. And then you have what you call a punishment, which is imposition of unpleasant outcome of an employee following undesirable behavior. And then the extensions, which is withdrawal of a positive reward, meaning that the behavior is no longer reinforced and hence is likely to occur in the future. So shaping behavior with reinforcement, this situation, as we look at it here, we can explain it one by one. As you see here, how is this done? It's basically, let's say you have a slow work rate. And really the supervisor is looking for you to work harder to make it faster, to your rate supposed to be extra. So he has to do one of the two. One, employee increase, he wants to, employee increases the work rate, or the employees continues the slow work rate. So what the supervisor sees, is he gonna stay slow, or do I want to increase his rate? Now, to increase his rate, he has two options. First, appraise employee, recommend pay rates. For example, increase the likelihood that the behavior will be repeated. That's a positive. Says, if you work harder, we'll pay you more. And that will increase it. And then you might have no, to avoid reprimand, which is a negative statement, and is avoidant, increase the likelihood that behavior will be not repeated. On the case of the employee continue with the slow work, and here where you probably, the other option is give some kind of a punishment, so the next time he will be working better, or just the employee says, I'm not gonna work harder or faster, and I'm quitting. And that's what you call an extension. On the nice graph. The other theory is called expectancy theory, which is a theory that suggests that motivation depends on individual mental expectations about their ability to perform tasks and receive a desired reward. So whether they believe that they can perform or not perform, and if they believe that, whether they're going to get the desired rewards or not. So in the expectancy theory, there is two things you need to look at it. Is one, that does he believe that he can perform or not? Let's assume he believes he can perform. The second stage, does he believe that he's going to get the reward for that performance or not? And the both has to be positive in order for you to increase or accomplish that performance from that employee. So if he doesn't believe that he can do that performance, you're not going to get any performance. And if he doesn't believe that he's not going to get any reward, if he believes that, no reward for him. So even if he can do it, he's not going to do it because there is no reward in it. And we see that many times. Then you have what you call equity theory, a theory that proposed that people are motivated to seek social equity in the reward they receive for performance, equities and equalities. And empowerment, which is you delegate some kind of jobs and give them reason for them to make a decision. But in general means power sharing, the delegation of power or authority to subordinate in the organization. So there is psychological model of empowerment. There's a certain way of doing empowerment, and it's before. So in a way, if you want to do any empowerment for your subordinate or your coworkers, first you need to do certain step before empowerment. Because if you don't do these steps, you might not be able, your empowerment would not be effective. Empowering employees, these needed to be done, which is employees receive information about the company performance. Employees receive knowledge and skills to contribute to company's goal. So it becomes a competence. Employees have the power to make a substantive decision. And then employees understand the meaning and the impact of their job, and employees are rewarded based on the company. So if it's truly, you put a check mark in the front of these, and if they're all checked and all positive and employees are aware of these steps, then you might now empowering them, it can be very effective. Otherwise, not going to be effective. Performance, and this is the psychological model of empowerment of employees. Now, we know what's an empowerment, but how are we going to design a job that gives to the employees an empowerment, which comes in a job design first thing, job design itself, which is structuring the job in a way that meet the higher level needs and increase the motivation toward the accomplishment of goal. We saw in the first slide, leadership looks at the higher level needs. So you need to design the job in a way meets the higher level need. Now, the job characteristics models, it's a model of a job design that consider the core job dimension of skills, varieties, task identities, task significance, autonomy, and feedback to enrich the job and increase their motivation. Now it comes in how we're going to do the job enrichment is a motivational approach that incorporate the high level motivators into the work, such as you give them more, including job responsibilities, more job responsibility, recognition of the opportunity for the growth. They realize that, learning and achievement. Now, once we did the job design, there is a ways to increase the job enrichment. So here we did a job empowerment. Here we do a job enrichment. And in the job enrichment, what we need to do is really increase the skills varieties. And that's a pretty challenging thing for a simple task. So actually, if you're working for a company that they have a simple tax, it's very difficult to do that. And what do? The other thing you can do, and instead of increasing skills varieties, you probably give him multiple tasks to do that. And that's another way of doing a job enrichment. So he can perform more than one task, for example. Structure jobs so that an employee can perform a complete task from the beginning to the end to have a good idea and feels that he's producing. Third, incorporate task significance into the job. Give the people autonomy to choose how and when to perform a specific task. What we say here, incorporate task significance into the job. So you give the person some kind of a task that he feels or she feels important, and as a part of, without him or without her would not be kind of this, that part of job would not be delivered, the total job. And to the extent possible, design the job to provide the feedback and let the employees see the outcome of their efforts. And that probably a little bit challenging because most of the time we forget that the employees also need to see the result of their effort and how they contributed to the task, to the work, or to the environment itself, so they can feel more positive and motivated to do further things. The empowerment application is in its dimensions used to classify the empowerment method, how we see how we can classify this empowerment is we look at it at the extent to which employees are involved in the defining and desired outcome, and the extent to which they participate in determining how to achieve those outcomes. These are two things, two applications that we need to define when we are designing and giving somebody. I believe we went through an extensive way of having a successful project and a successful implementation. And we said that there is two parts in any project. There is a subjective and there is an objective. As a project manager, you need to make sure they are separated, the objective and the subjective. And the objective, we said, these are things that everybody agrees on the answer. Now, so these are objective, you need to keep them in your mind. Now, you can share the subjective part off because everybody can have a different answer. And once you share these subjectives and get the feedback from them, you get these people kind of involved in defining desired outcome. So, for example, you might want to ask them when you are developing the application, what kind of communication tool where should be allocated. That doesn't make a big difference for you, whether on the left side or right side or then the bottom. But for him or for her, she will feel that he's involved in the design and the desired outcome. And that is a subjective, and probably you will go with the majority what they want. But it's nice to share them and not just to make everything is objective and here's take it or leave it. Subjective is a part that you can adjust that. So the extent to which they participate determine it helps the success of that project actually. Job is the extent to which that employee is involved in defining the desired outcome and the extent that employee in determining how to achieve those outcomes. Engagement and getting employees engaged. Engagement means when people enjoy their job and are satisfied with their work condition, contribute to meeting team and organizational goals and feel a sense of belonging and commitment to the organization. So, okay, so this is where you as a project manager or a project leader or involved in a project, don't assume that whatever you're going to develop, the other will follow. And it does not hurt in the beginning is that you go with the first stage of separating these two parts. And that could be in IT, could be in anything else, by the way. And then when you recognize these two parts, then you realize, well, wait a second, these are things that I have to deliver, which is, you know, let's say you're developing a mobile application. And the mobile application should be, you're a project manager for it, and should runs on iPhone, runs on Samsung. So you have two type of windows should be built with a one engine. So you build the engine and you build two type of windows, what runs for two type of operating system. And these are objective. It's your objective. Now there is a functionalities that is going to be there within the mobile application that's supposed to run the company objectives, which is that's fine. And these has to be very clear. The last part of it says how it's going to be touch and feel of this application. Does it matter for you as a project manager? No, because you're a project manager. You're not a marketing person or a salesperson or the company manager. You're a project manager. You have to know that limit that you have. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to go and say, okay, these are the functionality you're looking for. You marketing guys, you communication guys, you the users guys, how you like the colors, how you like the touch and feel, how you like the movement, how you like the sizing, how you like the font. It doesn't matter for you as a project manager what's the font is used there, because what's matter is what the font they want. So now you go there and you find out there is two view of the font that they're looking for. And then, but at least what you did, you can get them engaged in it. And the majority said, we want this kind of font A, for example. Majority said that. But at least when you go and put, now you go and put a font A. If some group comes in and says, well, why you didn't put a font B? Says, well, the majority wanted the font A, for example. So these are ways of getting the people engaged, and it does not hurt you as a project leader or project manager, because you're not there to do the marketing or do the communications. It's not, I mean, the draft, it's not part of your responsibilities really to tell the company what colors. You suggest these and let them choose between them. But you cannot tell, it's your responsibility is to build the two frames, because they want a frame for, say, example, for Samsung and a frame that's used for Apple. So be clear the first day when you look at the different tasks, you say, okay, which task must to have? But how would I know which task must to have? It's a very simple. By asking these people, okay, which task is which task must have is this is very simple. By asking this people yourself, if this task does not perform that according to my request or according to the standard, can I deliver this application? You would say, no, it's needed. Because the contract says, for example, is people are using iPhone and Samsung. That's a task must have. But then there is other task that says, who cares? Let them decide that. Come here. What do you want? We want to have the application in 2 languages. Sure. It's not a big deal. What language? English and French. Why you need a French? That's not your business. Why you need a French? Because the marketing guys and the salespeople, they know they can do lots of sales in French. You know what I mean? And then you find out the management and majority of the people wants the French. And if you don't deliver the French, then they say you're not delivering a good job. So in the beginning, you have to recognize 2 things. Must have and everybody have the same answer. In the subjective, which is each one or different answers, and you select the majority of it, and at least you get everybody involved in it when you are delivering. Once you walk out, the project is completed according to, they cannot separate objective and subjective, according to the majority request, and you're meeting the main objectives, but according to the majority request for the subjective part of it. Now, assuming if it needs more work, then you are there to balance between task, time, and money. That's the whole thing. Okay, guys, I'm gonna let you go earlier today. I've already got you if you missed an assignment, please go ahead and do it. The quizzes for chapter 7 and 8, I will open them and they will be available for you until next week. So by next class, those 2 quizzes will be, should be done by you guys and on MindTap. And please do them as soon as possible. In the material already published for you. Any question? Wonderful. So I'll see you guys. Have fun. And I know it's a late and everybody's tired.
Professor?
Yes.
Sir, you haven't opened the quiz for 5th and 6th chapter, I guess.
The 5th, 6th today. I mean, I will open them from chapter 7 and 8 and 6 today. Okay.
No, 5th and 6th we have already done, but one of my friend is having a problem with connectivity, and he texted me that he hasn't done 5th and 6th quiz, so it hasn't opened yet.
You see, I do understand that, but I cannot, if your friend is not able to even send me an email or something like that for being delayed, then I think he should come in next class and justify why he's not able to.
Sir, he has texted you in the chat, I guess, earlier, but now he's not been able to connect.
I see. I know which one you're telling me, because the person usually
Verma.
Yeah, he couldn't do the MindTap on time.
Yeah.
So probably let him know the chapter 7 and 8 and 6 will be only open. So he's gonna miss 1 chapter. That's fine. No big deal. Let him do the rest.
Okay.
And I wish him a good luck, because I know he tried his best to get the the MindTap, but unfortunately he went and selected a different book.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to accommodate that, but you shouldn't be worried about that. No worries
Okay.
about it.
Okay, Professor.
Okay. Okay, guys. So have fun. If you missed one or two quiz, please go see them. Today, if you missed anything, take it, and probably I will open the quiz 7 and 8, chapter 7 and 8, until next class. Okay.
Okay, Professor. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Oh, my hand is not showing. I'm saying bye. Okay, bye. With the left hand, yeah, it's working now. The left hand is okay.
Okay, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye-bye.